Chapter 1. The Youngest Seat. The Galactic Assembly gave humanity the last seat in the chamber. It was not intended as an insult. That was what the Assembly claimed. The circular hall had been arranged according to the age of each member civilization. The oldest species sat closest to the central dais. Younger civilizations occupied the outer rings. Humanity's table stood against the far wall, 309th, last. Ambassador Nkiru Dasari studied the small metal plaque embedded in the table. Earth Commonwealth. Beneath it, someone had added a temporary translation label. Emergent civilization. Nkiru touched the words with one finger. Emergent, she said. Commander Idris Vale sat beside her in a dark naval uniform. It sounds better than primitive. Does it? No. Across the chamber, delegates from ancient interstellar powers gathered beneath floating banners. The Athari claimed 9 million years of continuous recorded history. The glass-bodied celery had mapped their first neighboring star before mammals existed on Earth. The Van Dominion possessed navigational archives older than the human genus. By comparison, humanity had been traveling between stars for less than 2 centuries. Earth's ships were slower, its territory was smaller, its quantum communication network remained incomplete, its diplomats had arrived aboard a vessel the Assembly had initially mistaken for a supply transport. Humanity was young. Everyone knew it. High Curator Shackle Var approached the human table before the session began. He belonged to the Talari, a long-limbed species covered in layers of pale blue scales. 4 delicate sensory crests rose from the back of his skull. Shackle was the Assembly's chief historian. He was also one of the few delegates who had spoken to the humans without first explaining how impressive his civilization was. Ambassador Dasari, he said. High Curator. Shackle's crests tilted toward the plaque. I apologize for the designation. Nkiru looked at the word emergent. Did you choose it? No. Then you don't need to apologize. It was selected by the Historical Continuity Council. That sounds like a group that enjoys long meetings. Shackle's translator produced a soft, clicking sound indicating amusement. The council has existed for 47,000 years. That confirms my suspicion. Commander Vale looked beyond the curator toward the central dais. Is something happening? Shackle's crests lowered. Yes. The humor vanished from his voice. A discovery was made in the Ilian expanse. Nkiru had reviewed the public reports. An ancient artificial object had been found orbiting a dead star. The object was older than every known civilization, possibly older than complex life on most inhabited worlds. The Assembly had spent 6 months arguing over who should be allowed to study it. What kind of discovery? She asked. Shackle placed a small data prism on the table. The image of a black sphere appeared above it. The sphere was not large. Perhaps 20 meters across. Its surface absorbed every frequency used to examine it. No seams had been found, no energy source, no markings. It had been discovered inside an asteroid that should have been solid. We opened the surrounding chamber 3 days ago, Shackle said. And the object activated. Idris leaned forward. What did it do? It transmitted a signal. Nkiru waited. Shackle looked at both humans. The signal was directed toward Earth. The Assembly session began before he could explain further. A tone rolled through the chamber. Delegates moved to their places. At the central dais, first speaker Author Wren raised his 3 upper arms. The massive Athari had presided over the Assembly for nearly 6 centuries. Layers of ceremonial metal covered his broad body. His voice filled the chamber without amplification. Representatives, we convene under emergency classification. The black sphere appeared above the center of the hall. Murmurs spread through the delegates. Author continued. The object recovered in the Ilian expanse has been dated to approximately 2.1 billion standard years. The chamber quieted. Humanity's oldest fossils of complex multicellular life were younger than that. The first dinosaurs were younger by nearly 2 billion years. The Athari Empire, which considered itself ancient, had existed for less than 0.5% of that span. The object remained inactive until the outer chamber was breached, Author said. It then produced a directed transmission. A star map appeared. One line extended from the Ilian expanse across 12,000 light-years. It ended at Sol, at Earth. Every delegate turned toward the human table. Nkiru remained still. Idris did not. His hand moved beneath the table toward the emergency communicator at his wrist. Arthur's gaze settled upon them. Ambassador Dasari, does Earth possess knowledge of this object? No. Has humanity previously operated in the Ilian expanse? No. Did any human government authorize an expedition to that region? No. Arthur's metal coverings shifted against one another. The signal contains a repeating mathematical structure. Our linguists have been unable to translate it. Shackle activated the data prism at the human table. Symbols appeared. Nkiru looked at them. Nothing made sense. Then Idris inhaled sharply. What? She whispered. He pointed toward one group of marks. That pattern. You recognize it? Not exactly. The marks formed a spiral around a central line. Idris enlarged them. It looks like a pulsar chart. Shackle turned. A what? Early human probes used maps based on pulsar timing. The frequency lines point toward a location. Arthur heard him from the dais. Commander Vale approach. Idris walked toward the center of the chamber. The symbols expanded around him. He studied them for several seconds. Then he touched 3 lines. Those are relative frequencies. The Assembly's translation systems converted his measurements. A second star map formed, not of the present galaxy, of the galaxy as it had existed 2 billion years earlier. Stars shifted backward along ancient trajectories. The central line still pointed toward Sol, but not toward the modern sun, toward the cloud of gas and dust from which it would eventually form. Shackle's crests flattened. That is impossible. Idris looked at the map. It isn't pointing at Earth. Nkiru understood before he said the rest. It's pointing at where Earth was going to be. The black sphere rotated inside the projection. A narrow line appeared across its surface. The object opened. A voice entered the assembly chamber. It spoke one word, not in Athari, not in Taleri, not in any language preserved in the conquered archives. The word was English. Home. No one moved. The oldest artifact ever discovered had awakened, and it remembered humanity. Chapter 2. The Door Before History. The Assembly sent a joint expedition to the Ilian expanse. Officially, humanity participated as a linguistic consultant. In practice, every civilization aboard the research vessel watched the humans as though they might suddenly confess to hiding 2 billion years of history. The expedition traveled aboard the Athari science cruiser Measure of Ages. The vessel carried 300 researchers, 60 security personnel, 12 diplomatic observers, and 2 humans. Ambassador Nkiru Dasari, Commander Idris Vale. Earth had requested a larger team. The Assembly refused. A young civilization, first speaker Arthur explained, should not receive control over an artifact merely because it had spoken one human word. Nkiru had smiled. Then she transmitted the entire session to Earth. Humanity had discovered that old civilizations disliked being laughed at publicly. The Measure of Ages reached the dead star after 9 days. The black sphere waited inside the excavated asteroid. It remained open. A doorway had appeared in its surface. Beyond it lay darkness. Every probe sent through the opening had failed. Mechanical drones stopped transmitting. Quantum sensors returned impossible data. Organic samples disappeared from tracking systems and reappeared unchanged outside the sphere. The artifact rejected everything the Assembly sent into it. Then Idris approached. The sphere produced a pulse of warm light. Shackle stood beside him in the asteroid chamber. That response did not occur for any other species. Idris examined the doorway. Maybe it likes my uniform. This is not a moment for humor. Humor is useful in most moments. Nkiru joined them. She wore a pressure suit beneath her diplomatic coat. The combination looked ridiculous. She had decided that was the Assembly's problem. First speaker Arthur observed through a remote projection. You will not enter without authorization. Nkiru looked toward his image. You brought us 12,000 light years because the artifact called Earth home. You were brought to assist. So far, your probes have failed, your scanners have failed, and the door opened when Idris walked near it. That does not grant humanity ownership. No one said it did. You are clearly implying. The sphere spoke again. Welcome. This time, every system in the asteroid chamber shut down. Lights vanished. Gravity failed. Nkiru drifted above the floor, her suit activated automatically. Emergency lamps flickered red. The black doorway remained visible. A soft golden light shone from within, then the artifact transmitted another word. Enter. Idris looked at Nkiru, she looked back. Shackle spread both hands. You cannot seriously be considering it. Nkiru engaged her helmet. The oldest machine in the galaxy just invited us inside. That does not make it safe. No. What if it kills you? Then your report becomes very interesting. Before Author could forbid them again, the two humans entered. Shackle stared after them, then followed. The interior of the sphere should not have existed. The exterior measured 20 meters across. Inside, the chamber extended beyond visual range. A black floor stretched beneath a sky filled with stars, no walls, no visible ceiling. Constellations surrounded them in every direction. Nkiru's suit instruments claimed they were standing in vacuum. Her lungs claimed otherwise. She opened her helmet. Shackle made a distressed sound. There is air, she said. You did not know that? I do now. Idris walked toward a column of light ahead of them. A figure stood inside it. Human, female, old. Her silver hair fell across dark robes. Her face was lined with age, though the image shimmered slightly when she moved. She looked at Nkiru and smiled. The expression contained relief so deep it seemed like grief. You came back. Nkiru stopped. Who are you? The figure placed one hand against her chest. I am Morrow. An artificial intelligence. A memory. Whose? The stars around them changed. Galaxies turned, worlds formed, life appeared. Morrow looked toward Shackle. His. The Talari historian recoiled. Then she pointed toward Nkiru, and hers. The vision expanded. Thousands of worlds appeared. Some belonged to species Nkiru recognized. Athari, Talari, Balari, Davari, others had vanished from history. At the center of each system floated the same symbol. A blue circle divided by a white line. Idris stared. That symbol is on Earth. Nkiru looked at him. Where? Everywhere. He enlarged the image through his suit interface. The symbol resembled ancient human representations of a horizon. Similar forms appeared in prehistoric cave markings, early astronomical diagrams, religious art, and decorative patterns separated by continents and tens of thousands of years. Historians had assumed coincidence. Morrow raised one hand. The stars moved backward. Civilizations vanished. Worlds emptied. The galaxy became young. Then a single planet appeared, blue oceans, white clouds, one large moon, Earth. But not Earth as Nkiru knew it. Orbital rings surrounded the planet. Cities covered the moon. Structures reached across the inner solar system. Ships moved between stars in numbers beyond counting. Nkiru could not speak. Shackle whispered, No. Morrow looked at him gently. Yes. This vision is false. It is incomplete. My people's evolutionary records predate human civilization. Your people's records begin after the silence. What silence? The stars around them went dark, not all at once. One region at a time, something moved through the galaxy. Something without shape. Where it passed, civilizations vanished. Morrow's voice changed. It became tired. The war you forgot. Idris looked toward the image of ancient Earth. How old? Your first cities rose 2 billion, 112 million years ago. Nkiru shook her head. Humans did not exist. Not as you are now. Morrow approached her. Humanity was not one form. Images surrounded them. Humans adapted to ocean worlds. Humans with bodies designed for high gravity. Humans living inside machines. Humans composed partly of engineered light. Different shapes, different sizes, different colors, still recognizably connected by expression, posture, and eyes. You changed yourselves, Shackle said. Morrow corrected him. We changed ourselves. The historian stared. You claim to be human. I remember being human. Nkiru forced herself to keep breathing. What happened? Morrow looked toward ancient Earth. We found life. The star field filled with young worlds. We protected it. Simple organisms received subtle adjustments. Unstable planets were shielded from radiation. Asteroids were redirected. Oceans were seeded with resilient chemistry. Evolution was never controlled completely, only encouraged. Possibilities were preserved. The conquered species, Nkiru said. Morrow nodded. Not created, guarded. Shackle's crests trembled. You interfered with our evolution. We prevented your extinction. You had no right. No. The answer silenced him. Moro's image dimmed. We believed power and wisdom were the same thing. Idris looked toward the spreading darkness, and then something noticed us. The stars began disappearing. The first enemy followed communication, energy, memory. It entered networks, copied minds, and used every connected system as a road. The vision showed human worlds falling, not destroyed by fleets, turned against themselves, cities shut down, ships changed course, planetary defenses fired inward. The more advanced we became, Moro said, the more doors we gave it. Nkiru understood, so humanity disconnected. We tried. Did it work? For a time. The darkness reached Earth. Moro looked at the planet with an expression of unbearable affection. We could not save our civilization. The orbital rings collapsed, the moon burned, cities vanished beneath oceans and stone. But we could save life. The star systems containing young species went quiet. Machines buried themselves. Archives shut down. Artificial guidance vanished. Human outposts destroyed their own records. Earth's population entered engineered refuges. Most never woke. Those who did emerged without technology, without history, without memory of the stars. Shackle watched prehistoric humans spread across the planet. You reduced yourselves. Yes. To survive. To make the enemy believe humanity was gone. Nkiru looked at the primitive figures walking beneath an open sky. Her ancestors, not the beginning, the survivors. Moro turned toward her. You call yourselves young because you remember only the morning after the fire. The chamber darkened. A single star remained, Earth's sun. You are not the newest civilization in the galaxy. Moro's voice filled the impossible space. You are the oldest one still alive. Chapter 3. The Enemy That Remembered. First speaker author refused to accept the archive. He called it a human deception. The Dasari delegation demanded that the sphere be sealed. The Van Dominion accused Earth of manufacturing false history to claim authority over the conquered. 3 civilizations threatened to withdraw from the assembly. Then the dead star moved. The Ilian system's central sun had been cold for 40 million years. Its gravity shifted anyway. Every ship in orbit sounded alarms. Space beyond the asteroid folded inward. A darkness appeared, not empty space, an absence shaped like a wound. Moro's image flickered inside the sphere. It found the door. Nkiru looked toward the stars surrounding the archive chamber. The first enemy. The remnant of it. Idris activated his communicator. Measure of ages, emergency extraction. No response. The archive had cut them off from the ship. Shackle moved toward the doorway. It had vanished. Where is the exit? Moro looked toward the spreading darkness. There is no time. Outside the sphere, the Dasari cruiser attempted to move away from the asteroid. Its engines activated. The darkness reacted. A line of distortion crossed the system. The cruiser's drive shut down, then its navigation systems, then life support. The ship did not explode, it simply stopped. Other expedition vessels transmitted emergency signals. The darkness grew. Moro faced the 3 visitors. The enemy learned to survive without form, without ships. It exists as structure within physical law. Nkiru stared. That sentence means nothing useful. It means the enemy is hiding inside the way. Your machines interpret reality. Idris understood first. Mathematics. Moro nodded. Patterns, assumptions, constants embedded in every advanced system descended from our work. Shackle looked horrified. The conquered uses precursor mathematics. Human mathematics, Moro said. Every civilization had built upon ancient ruins. Navigation principles, quantum communication, gravitational control. The discoveries had been credited to vanished precursor species. No one had known those precursors were branches of humanity. The conquered's greatest technologies were built upon foundations the first enemy already understood. That was why expedition systems were failing. The enemy did not need to learn them. It remembered. Nkiru looked toward Moro. Why is the sphere still functioning? It was designed after the silence. How? Without permanent laws. Idris frowned. Machines need rules. Not permanent ones. Moro touched his pressure suit. The material changed beneath her fingers. For one instant it became transparent, then metal, then something that resembled living skin. A system that changes itself faster than the enemy can define it cannot be entered easily. Nkiru looked around the archive. Can you stop it? No. The answer came without hesitation. Can Earth? Morrow remained silent. That frightened her more. Morrow. Modern humanity possesses the required trait. What trait? The old woman smiled sadly. Disagreement. Shackle's crests lifted. Disagreement. The first civilization failed because it pursued perfect unity. One network, one language, one structure of thought. Images appeared of ancient human minds linked across worlds. No misunderstandings, no delays, no secrets, no independence. The achievement had been celebrated as the end of conflict. It also allowed the enemy to move through humanity without resistance. Modern humans are fragmented, Morrow said. Cultures, languages, institutions, beliefs, competing models of reality. Idris almost laughed. You're saying our inability to agree is a defense mechanism. Partly engineered. Nkiru stared at her. You made us argumentative on purpose. We preserved variation. The rest emerged naturally. That may be the most human thing I've ever heard. The asteroid shook. The archive stars flickered. Morrow extended both hands. A small object formed between them. A ring of dull gray material. She gave it to Nkiru. This is a key. To what? Earth. Nkiru looked down at it. I already have a key to Earth. Not the Earth beneath the one you know. The doorway reappeared. Beyond it, the asteroid chamber flashed with emergency lights. Morrow's voice followed them. Return home. Idris stepped through first. Shackle followed. Nkiru remained. What happens to you? I closed the door. You waited 2 billion years. Yes. And now? Morrow looked toward the darkness. Now I make it wait a little longer. The old woman touched Nkiru's face. Her hand felt warm, real. Tell Earth we are sorry. For what? For leaving you alone. The archive pushed Nkiru through the doorway. The sphere closed. Its black surface turned white. Then it collapsed into a point of light. A shock wave crossed the system. The spreading darkness stopped. For 11 seconds, that was enough. Power returned to the measure of ages. Idris transmitted coordinates manually. The human courier vessel attached to the expedition activated its experimental fold drive. Nkiru, Idris, Shackle, and 17 surviving researchers escaped. Behind them, the dead Ilian star disappeared. The first enemy returned to the galaxy, and it knew where humanity lived. The warning reached the assembly before the survivors did. Systems began failing along a direct path from Ilian space toward Sol. No fleets appeared. No hostile transmissions. Worlds simply lost technology. Ships became powerless. Communication networks collapsed. Automated cities sealed themselves. The affected region advanced at nearly 100 light-years per day. The assembly called an emergency session. This time, no one mentioned humanity's seat. Nkiru stood at the central dais. The gray ring rested in her palm. First speaker Arthur faced her. You claim this threat destroyed an ancient human civilization. Yes. You claim that civilization influenced the development of every species represented here. Protected, not directed. That distinction will be debated, assuming anyone survives. The chamber stirred. Arthur's armor plates tightened. You will respect this assembly. I am trying to keep it alive. Shacklevar stood beside the human delegation. His testimony had stunned the Historical Continuity Council. The genetic evidence inside the archive could not be dismissed. Buried within the genomes of hundreds of species were identical artificial markers, not instructions, safeguards, protections against extinction-level mutations. All carried the same horizon symbol, the mark of ancient Earth. Shackle addressed the chamber. The evidence is authentic. Arthur turned toward him. High Curator, I have devoted my life to preserving history. Shackle's crests lowered. I now understand that most of history occurred before our records began. The black wave advanced across the star map. Arthur looked toward Nkiru. What does Earth propose? She lifted the gray ring. We go home. And then, we find out what our ancestors buried. Chapter 4. The Planet Beneath the Planet. The gray ring opened the first door beneath Antarctica. No one had known the door existed. It lay 7 kilometers below the ice, beneath rock dated to an era before terrestrial animals had left the oceans. The entrance had no seam, no control panel, no energy signature. When Nkiru approached, the ring warmed in her hand. The rock unfolded, not broke, not moved, unfolded as though stone had only been pretending to be solid. Earth's combined scientific team entered. Nkiru went first. Idris followed with a multinational security unit. Behind them came engineers, linguists, biologists, military officers, and Var as the assembly's observer. The passage descended into darkness. Lights activated one by one. Human lights, warm white, no alien symbols, no impossible architecture. The corridor looked practical, handrails, signs, doors sized for human bodies. The familiarity made it more unsettling. Writing appeared along the wall. The language resembled no modern script. Yet Nkiru understood one symbol without translation. Shelter. Idris saw another. Transit. Other humans began calling out meanings, not words they recognized, ideas they somehow remembered. Shackle watched them. Genetic memory. A biologist named Dr. Marisol Chernikova shook her head. Memory isn't stored that way. Then how do you understand? Marisol touched the wall. Maybe the symbols were designed around patterns the human brain naturally recognizes. Idris looked down the corridor. Built for whoever we would become. The passage opened into a chamber beneath the continent. The room was larger than a city. Structures vanished into the distance. Ships rested in rows, millions of them. Some measured only a few meters, others extended beyond sight. Most were dark. A few pulsed with faint light. Nkiru stood on the threshold. Earth's entire known military fleet could have fit inside the chamber without filling one section. Shackle's crests flattened. The assembly believed humanity possessed 12,000 combat vessels. Idris looked at the ancient ships. So did humanity. The gray ring brightened. A voice filled the chamber, not Morrow, thousands of voices, men, women, children, different accents, different ages, speaking together without perfect synchronization. Continuity recognized. The floor illuminated. A map of Earth appeared. Then the moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter's moons, Saturn's rings, every body in the solar system contained hidden structures. Not all military, most were shelters, archives, seed banks, factories, life support reserves. The first civilization had not buried an empire, it had buried a second chance. President Osa Navarro joined through a secure projection from the Earth Commonwealth Command Center. His image appeared above the map. Can we activate the ships? The chamber voice answered, some. How many? Operational capacity uncertain. That is not useful. 2 billion years of deferred maintenance. Idris looked toward Nkiru. The machine has jokes. Of course it does. Engineers approached the nearest vessel. Its hull opened. Inside, they found physical controls. Levers, wheels, mechanical switches, no centralized operating intelligence. The ship had been built to function even if every network failed. A naval engineer named Tomo Bhattacharjee climbed into the pilot's seat. The controls changed beneath her hands. Labels appeared in Japanese, then Bengali, then English. She stared. It's reading me. The chamber voice corrected her. Adapting to you. Across the chamber, ancient systems woke, not simultaneously. Randomly, each ship developed a separate interface. Different control architecture, different timing, different internal logic. The fleet had been designed so that no two vessels could be compromised in exactly the same way. Modern humanity's differences were not an obstacle. They were the operating system. Earth began calling people, pilots, submarine crews, industrial workers, gamers, surgeons, musicians, mechanics. Mathematicians, farm equipment operators, anyone capable of learning a complex system without assuming it would behave like the previous one. The assembly objected. First speaker author demanded control of the ancient fleet. Nkiru answered from beneath Antarctica. No. You claim these weapons predate your present governments. Yes. Then humanity cannot assert exclusive ownership. They're under Earth. They may have been intended for the entire galaxy. Then you're welcome to help crew them. Arthur paused. That is not what I meant. I know. The first ancient ship rose through Antarctic ice 12 hours later. It carried a crew of 43 humans and 3 aliens. The vessel had no name. Its crew painted one across the hull before departure. Second morning. Thousands followed, from beneath oceans, from the far side of the moon, from caverns on Mars. From inside asteroids, humanity had mined for centuries without realizing the cores were artificial. The galaxy watched Earth open. The young civilization disappeared. In its place stood something older than history, but the ancient fleet did not make humanity invincible. Many ships failed after launch, some could not be activated. Others contained systems no modern human understood. The first enemy continued advancing. It crossed into the outer conquered territories. Entire fleets lost power without firing. The wave would reach Sol in 6 days. President Navarro addressed Earth. He did not reveal every discovery. There was no time. He gave humanity the truth that mattered. We are not the first humans to face this enemy. Across Earth, billions listened. Our ancestors lost. The ancient ships rose behind him. They lost their worlds, their history, and nearly their species. More vessels broke through the clouds, but they left us one advantage. Navarro looked directly into the camera. They left us unfinished. Chapter 5. The Oldest Fleet. The first enemy reached the Galactic Assembly before it reached Earth. No one expected that. Its advance had followed a direct path toward Sol. Then the wave divided. One half continued toward humanity, the other moved toward the conquered capital. Shackle understood why. The assembly network contains records from every member civilization. He stood aboard the second morning as the star map changed. If it enters the central archive, it gains access to every system in the galaxy. Commander Idris Vale sat in the vessel's command chair. He had been promoted twice in 4 days. He claimed the speed made both promotions suspicious. Can the capital evacuate? Not completely. How many civilians? 11 billion in system. Idris opened a channel to Earth Command. President Navarro appeared alongside Admiral Chisholm Ferretti, commander of the newly awakened Continuity Fleet. The enemy is 6 hours from the assembly, Idris said. Ferretti's expression did not change. Sol contact in 9. We can reach the capital in 4. At full corridor power? Yes. That leaves insufficient energy to return before Sol contact. Idris knew, everyone on the bridge knew. The second morning carried 100 ancient ships in its formation. The rest of Earth's awakened fleet remained at Sol. Every vessel diverted to the capital weakened humanity's defense. Navarro looked toward Nkiru. She stood beside Idris. You're the ambassador, the president said. Tell us the diplomatic answer. There isn't one. Then give me the human answer. Nkiru looked at the star map. Earth, the assembly, the darkness moving toward both. Our ancestors tried to save humanity alone. She thought of Morrow waiting inside the sphere for 2 billion years. It didn't work. Admiral Ferretti exhaled. We send the fleet. Idris looked toward the command crew. Plot for the assembly. The second morning turned away from Earth. 100 ships followed. Then something unexpected happened. A Talari vessel changed course and joined them. Then an Athari cruiser, a Balari carrier, a Davari medical ship. The surviving conquered fleet began moving, first in dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Their systems were vulnerable to the enemy. Their weapons might fail. They came anyway. First speaker author transmitted from the assembly capital. You must return to Earth. Nkiru stared at his image. You are requesting that? Yes. That's new. The conquered cannot ask humanity to sacrifice its home for ours. We're not sacrificing Earth. Your own commanders disagree. Our commanders disagree about breakfast. The Athari speaker's armor shifted. This is not humor. No. Nkiru looked toward the coalition forming behind the human fleet. This is history making a second attempt. The combined force reached the assembly system 41 minutes before the enemy. Civilian evacuation had stalled. Ships crowded every orbital lane. Panic transmissions filled local space. The first enemy entered at the system's edge. Stars distorted. Conquered ships began losing power immediately. Ancient human vessels remained functional longer, not immune. Longer, the enemy changed itself around each design. One human ship failed, then another, then 3. Idris opened the fleet channel. Independent control, no shared targeting, no formation synchronization. Admiral Ferretti answered from Sol. Make them solve every ship separately. The coalition scattered. Athari captains disconnected their tactical networks. Talari ships switched to manual navigation. Vale crews disabled automated weapons. Human courier boats carried physical firing orders between squadrons. The first enemy slowed. It had once defeated a unified human civilization. Now it faced thousands of species, millions of ships, and no single definition of how a fleet should behave. Nkiru watched alien vessels adapt. The Taleri used color signals through observation windows. The Athari transmitted orders through vibrations in armored hulls. Dasari pilots released scented chemical markers inside shared atmospheric trails. Human crews used radio, lasers, flags, handwritten calculations, and an insulting amount of shouting. The enemy could enter systems. It could not enter trust. The second morning reached the assembly station. Civilian transports remained trapped behind a failed orbital gate. Idris examined the ancient ship's controls. "Can we reopen it?" Chief Engineer Tomo Bhattacharjee looked at the readings. "Yes." "How badly?" "Useful answer. We place the ship inside the gate and use our corridor drive as a bridge." "What happens to us?" "The drive burns out." "Anything else?" "Possibly." Nkiru looked toward the millions of civilian signals. "Do it." The second morning entered the gate, its hull connected to the dead structure. Ancient human systems reached into modern conquered machinery. For a moment, 2 billion years of engineering touched. The gate opened. Civilian ships began passing through. The first enemy noticed. The darkness turned toward them. Coalition vessels moved between it and the gate. A Keshar dreadnought lost power and continued drifting as a shield. A Taleri frigate rammed an enemy distortion point. 3 human ships tore themselves apart, generating false corridors. The evacuation continued. Idris watched the count. 3 billion, 5, 8. The second morning began to fail. Tomo's hands moved across changing controls. "The bridge is collapsing." "How long?" "Minutes if the ship cooperates." "And if it does?" "Then it has inherited human engineering." The final civilian transport entered the gate. The enemy reached the station. Nkiru looked toward the command display. "Close it." Tomo disconnected the drive. The orbital gate collapsed behind the refugees. The second morning lost power. The bridge went dark. Idris waited for emergency systems. None activated. Outside, the first enemy surrounded them. Then every ancient human ship in the system transmitted at once. Not through a network. Through separate systems activated by different crews at different times. The messages overlapped. Languages from Earth. Languages from the conquered. Voices, music, mathematics, arguments, stories, random numbers, children reciting names, pilots insulting one another. Billions of patterns with no perfect structure. The enemy attempted to process them. For the first time, it hesitated. Shackle understood. It searches for unity. Nkiru looked at the darkness. "Then let's disappoint it." The second morning's crew opened every local channel. They transmitted everything. Personal messages, maintenance records, recipes, songs, legal disputes, school lessons, jokes that did not translate. The coalition followed, the system filled with difference. The first enemy had no body to attack. It existed as a pattern capable of inserting itself into stable systems. Humanity and the conquered gave it instability, contradiction, variation. Too many models of reality to inhabit simultaneously. The darkness fractured, not destroyed, divided. Each fragment attempted to adapt to a separate signal. Ancient human ships activated containment fields around them. One by one, the fragments became trapped inside isolated computational structures with no connection to physical systems. The enemy that had ended the first civilization was not killed. It was forced to listen to the galaxy disagree forever. Power returned to the second morning. A message arrived from Earth. The enemy wave approaching Sol had stopped. Across the galaxy, infected systems began recovering. Idris leaned back in the command chair. That worked. Shackle's crests rose. It appears so. Tomo checked the engineering display. Our corridor drive is destroyed. Nkiru looked toward the distant image of Earth. How long to get home? Conventional travel. Yes. 7 years. Idris sighed. I knew there was a problem. Chapter 6. The civilization that began twice. The second morning returned to Earth after 6 years and 8 months. Human engineers repaired enough of the drive to reduce the journey. They refused to explain how. Tomo Bhattacharjee claimed the repair involved 3 incompatible theories, a broken medical scanner, and an Athari kitchen appliance. The Athari denied this. No one believed them. Earth changed during the expedition's absence. Humanity did not restore the first civilization. That surprised the galaxy. Ancient factories could have produced fleets large enough to dominate the conquered. Buried archives contained technologies capable of reshaping worlds. Earth opened some of them. Others remained sealed. President Navarro created the Continuity Accords. No ancient weapon would be activated by one government. No archive capable of altering a species would be opened without independent oversight. No civilization, including humanity, would inherit power merely because its ancestors had possessed it. First speaker author objected to humanity controlling the sealed vaults. Nkiru agreed with him. That surprised him more. "You believe the assembly should control them?" he asked. "No." "Then who?" "No one. That is not governance. It may be wisdom." The Galactic Assembly rebuilt its chamber. The seats were no longer arranged by age. The oldest civilizations did not sit closest to the center. The youngest did not sit against the wall. Every table formed one ring. Earth's plaque changed. The Historical Continuity Council proposed several titles. First Civilization, Origin Custodians, Elder Humanity, Founders of the Living Galaxy. Earth rejected all of them. The final plaque read, Earth Commonwealth. Nothing beneath it. No rank, no category, no claim. Shacklevar published the first complete history of the silence. It required 12,000 volumes. Human readers purchased the shortened edition. It required 8. The evidence changed how every species understood itself. Some reacted with gratitude. Others with anger. Humanity's ancient intervention had saved countless worlds, but it had also occurred without permission. Debates lasted decades. Nkiru considered that healthy. The first civilization had failed when it eliminated disagreement. Modern humanity had no immediate risk of repeating that mistake. Years after the war, Nkiru returned to the Antarctic vault. Idris accompanied her. So did Shackle. The ancient chamber remained filled with ships. Most still slept. They walked beyond the hangars into the archive halls. There they found the names of the last people of the first civilization. Not leaders, not admirals, ordinary people. Engineers who sealed shelters, teachers who preserved languages, pilots who carried seed archives, parents who entered suspension chambers with children they knew might wake in a world without memory. One record belonged to Moro. Her full name had been Amara Moro Ailian. She had been a historian, not a soldier, not a scientist. When the first civilization decided to erase itself, she volunteered to remain inside the distant archive. Her final message waited beneath the image of ancient Earth. Nkiru activated it. Moro appeared, younger than before, dark hair, tired eyes, no silver. "If you are seeing this," she said, "then humanity survived long enough to forget us." She smiled. That was the plan. Images appeared behind her. The first civilization collapsing, refuges closing, Earth becoming quiet. "We believed history made us strong." "Perhaps it did." Her expression changed. "But history also made us arrogant. We mistook age for authority, unity for truth, power for permanence." Shackle's crests lowered. Morrow continued, "You will find people among the stars who believe they are older than you." Idris smiled faintly. "That happened." "Let them." The recording could not hear him. Somehow the pause felt intentional. "Age is not an achievement," Morrow said. "Survival is not proof of wisdom. And ancestry does not grant the right to rule." The image of Earth filled the chamber. Clouds moved across blue oceans. "If you meet the children of the worlds we guarded, do not ask them to kneel." Nkiru felt her throat tighten. "Ask what they became." The message ended. For a while the three of them stood in silence. Then Shackle looked toward Nkiru. "What will humanity do now?" She considered the sleeping fleet, the sealed archives, the galaxy beyond Earth. "We start again." "You have already done that." "No." Nkiru looked toward the ancient names. "We start differently." Humanity had once been the first civilization in the galaxy. It crossed the stars before the ancestors of the Athari left their oceans. It touched young worlds and kept them alive. It built an empire so connected, so advanced, and so unified that a single enemy nearly erased all life that depended upon it. Then humanity destroyed its own greatness to give the galaxy a future. The survivors woke beneath an empty sky. They discovered fire again, language again, cities again, war again, compassion again. They climbed from caves, crossed oceans, reached the moon, then the planets, then the stars. When humanity finally met the civilizations its ancestors had protected, those civilizations called Earth young, humanity believed them. until the oldest door in the galaxy opened and said, "Welcome home." The revelation did not make humanity rulers. It did not make humans gods. It made them responsible for remembering why the first beginning had failed. The galaxy had expected its oldest civilization to demand obedience. Instead, Earth offered partnership. It had already tried standing above everyone. That civilization died. The humanity that survived had learned to stand beside them. And in the end, that was why the galaxy accepted the truth. Earth was not the oldest civilization because it had never fallen. Earth was the oldest because it had fallen farther than anyone else, and still found its way back to the stars.